Square root of 10 times square root of 100 times square root of 1000 and so on is what? So for solving this problem, we write it as product of different terms. We want to use famous thing that AB square root of AB when A and B are positive, we can write it as square root of A times B. So here we can write it as the square root of 10 times square root of 100 times square root of 1000 and so on. Let me tell you something. When we have square root of a, it will be a to the power of 1 over 2. When we have square root of a, it will be square root of a to the power of 1 over 2. Again, it will be square root of 1 over 2 squared. So, if we continue like this, the first one is the square root of 10. The next one is write it as square root of 100 times square root of 1000 and so on. So the first one is 10 to the power of 1 over 2. The next one is 100 to the power of 1 over 2 squared. The next one similarly will be 1000 to the power of 1 over 2 cubed and so on. Now, next step, what should we do? All numbers are powers of 10. 10 squared, 10 cubed. So let's write them like this. First one is 10 to the power of 1 over 2 times. The next one is 100. 10 squared over 2 squared. The next one, 1000 is 10 cubed over 1 over 2 cubed times. The next one will be 10 to the 4 to the power of 1 over 2 to the 4 and so on. Now for the next part, we use another formula. Let me erase this formula. We can say that a to the m to the n equal to a to the mn. So here we can say it is equal to 10 to the power of 1 over 2 times 10 to the power of 2 over 2 squared times 10 to the power of 3 over 2 cubed times 10 to the power of 4 over 2 to the 4 and so on. The next thing is that a to the m times a to the n is a to the m plus n. So it is equal to, let me write, 10 to the power of 1 over 2 plus 2 over 2 squared plus 3 over 2 cubed plus 4 over 2 to the 4 and so on. So we should calculate this power, and it is a famous problem. We can solve it with derivatives, but here I want to solve this problem with basic things, okay? At first, for solving this, I should tell you, rule is what 1 plus 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2 squared plus 1 over 2 cubed we want to calculate it is what? Suppose it is s. If we multiply s by 2, it will be 2 plus 1 plus 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2 squared and so on. And if we subtract 2s minus s is s, 1 and 1 will be cancelled, 1 over 2, 1 over 2, 1 over 2 squared, and so on. So it will be 1. And this is, let me, instead of drawing a line, let me call this star. Now I want to find that here 1 over 2 plus 2 over 2 squared plus 3 over 2 cubed plus 1 over 4 over 2 to the 4 and so on is what? We want to solve it with triangular method. It is what? Look, the name is not important. We call this so that in next videos we can remind this idea. So let's write it 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2 over 2 squared plus 3 over 2 cubed plus 4 over 2 to the 4 and so on. So it will be what? We write it once 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2 squared plus 1 over 2 cubed plus 1 over 2 to the 4 and so on. But here we have 1 over 2, 1 over 2. But here we have 2 times 1 over 2 squared. We've written one of them. So again, next time we start from here. 1 over 2 squared 1 over 2 cubed, 1 over 2 to the 4, and so on. So as you can see, it is okay, it is okay. Now, next one. It is 3 over 2 cubed. We have 1 over 2 cubed, 1 over 2 cubed, 2 of these, but here we need 3. So next time we start from here, 1 over 2 cubed, 1 over 2 to the 4. It will be okay. And then next one time we start from 1 over 2 to the 4 and so on. So as you can see, it is like a triangle, okay? So the first line is what? If you factor from 1 over 2, it is exactly 1 over 2 times s, because if you factor from 1 over 2, it will be 1 plus 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2 squared, so it will be 1 over 2 times s. The next one, if you factor from 1 over 2 squared, is 1 over 2 squared times s. The next one will be 1 over 2 cubed times s. The next one is 1 over 2 to the 4 times s, and so on. So let's consider is a equal to s over 2 plus s, a equal to s over 2 plus s over 2 squared plus s over 2 cubed plus s over 2 to the 4, and so on. So let's write it. A equal to s over 2, 1 half s plus 1 over 2 squared times s plus 1 over 2 cubed times s plus 1 over 2 to the 4 times s, and so on. If we factor from s, it will be 1 half plus 1 over 2 squared plus 1 over 2 cubed, and so on. So, sorry, here s is 2, not 1, because 2 is left here. So s is 2. Now, here it will be and so on. This part, because s is from 1 to 1 plus 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2 squared, if you factor from 1 over 2, it will be s again. So the answer will be s squared over 2. S was what? S from previous page, from star, S was 2. If we replace here S with 2, then let's consider from star, it will be 2 squared over 2, which is 4 over 2, which equal to 2. So our answer here is 2. Okay? But let's consider this part. The numerator, the power is 2. So it is 10 squared. So it will be 100, and we understand that the answer of this problem equal to 100. Okay. If you had questions, send message to my WhatsApp number, and please don't forget to subscribe, turn on the bell, and like the video. Thanks. Bye.